So this is a report that Babita Deokaran filed 3 weeks before her murder. And it's become essentially the spine of our investigation. And it sets out what she found at Tembisa Hospital before her assassination. And there's several key elements of this report which have become key tropes in this investigation as we move forward. And the first one is the opening line of the report, where she makes it clear that she notified acting CFO Lorato Maggio of her concerns about Tembisa Hospital spending patterns. And she says it there in the opening line of the report, to provide this report to the acting CFO as a follow-up to her telephonic discussion. Now that's important because it will prevent any sort of ignorance defense on the part of Maggio in explaining what she did or failed to do after Babita came to her. And that's something that we've honed in on. But the report goes on to sort of distill Babita Deokaran's reason for concerns. And it all relates to a spending pattern out of this hospital which sits on the East Rand. And she looked at their buying patterns, the number of purchase orders they processed, an array of key metrics, and compared them to other hospitals in Gauteng's network. When you consider this one table, it's incredibly important because it looks at purchase orders in a 1 month span across all of the facilities in Gauteng. And it's very strange that Tembisa Hospital, which is in essence a tertiary facility, is spending exponentially more than other hospitals in the network. And when you look at the number of purchase orders which were processed by the hospital compared to other facilities in the network, Tembisa Hospital is a clear frontrunner, dwarfed only in value by the health department's head office. And if you look at the number of records, it's nearly double the next hospital in the queue. But Deokaran then went further and said the reason for my concern is the amount or the value of these purchase orders, which is key in this, because beneath the threshold of 500,000 Rand, and you avoid a public and rigorous tender process. Under that threshold, the procurement can be undertaken at the hospital exclusively. And that was obviously a point of concern for her. So in the space of 4 months, she looked at how many purchase orders under that value Tembisa Hospital pushed through its system. And the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, 1,232 individual orders compared to Charlotte Maxeke Academic Hospital with 84. It's an exponential rise. She even provided a list of suppliers that she felt were dubious. And this is the list, and all of the money that they earned. So we were given a window into a hospital's buying patterns. Everything from the vegetables and the food that they feed the patients to high-tech medical equipment. And there are some egregiously blatant purchases that came out of Tembisa Hospital that made you question, how is it possible that we are spending government money on things like skinny jeans or 100 leather wingback chairs? There's even an instance where a company which was formed only 1 month before sold arts and craft supplies to the hospital to the value of 500,000 Rand. So that makes you wonder that the people who were behind this network of extraction, both inside the hospital and at the provincial head office, did so knowing that they could push through the most obscene and irrelevant orders and they would face no consequence for this. The parting shot in her report, which was, despite what the health department would have people believe, widely circulated amongst their leadership, was that she called for an urgent investigation. And this is the line here. It's recommended that the acting CFO, through the head of department, request an investigation into these companies, as well as the procurement transactions relating to them. That's something that never happened. And that is one of the great injustices of Babita Deokaran's murder, that she died reporting a crime that was essentially buried. And now we have a teenage girl who is an orphan. Her family are left with a gaping hole because of her loss. How we've moved along from that point is basically trying to follow the money, looking at the companies that she identified and taking her work further and trying to understand who are the people behind these faceless entities. And after doing several hundred company searches, we established that there were syndicates, or at least patterns in the way that companies were formed. Now, as we sit here, we've managed to establish that there were at least 54 shell corporations which were established with the primary purpose of extracting cash. It's worth noting that these companies used fake addresses and existed only on paper. They had no public presence, and importantly, they had no license to trade in high-tech medical gear. And that's to the detriment of the patients, because instead of goods and services that are required to run a hospital in an impoverished area, it was channeled to people who had no business seeing that money in their bank accounts.
Late father, Kebani Molloy, and my mother, Lillian Molloy, and I'm currently the manager of the building. Okay, at first it was a spa that was owned by my dad, and then afterwards it was leased by ShopRite USAfe, and then they leased it for about 10 years, and then after that it's been empty. We've been using it for events when people want to hire it out on weekends. It's been empty about 5 to 4 years, yes, along those lines. On our side, we have no lease agreement with anyone. We have never manufactured pills. So no, it was the first time when you guys came in contact with us. It makes me very angry because whoever's in charge of procurement or whatever they call it should have double checked whose property it is and what's going on with that property. So no one came to us, no one asked us anything. Clearly to them we are inferior, if that's the word I can use. Because it took my father a long time and hard work for him to build this building. And vice versa, we're trying to sustain it and keep it going as his legacy. So something like this that happens, it makes one very angry that someone can just pop up from anywhere and take over your own property, which is, I think, is very unfair.
So during the course of this investigation, we try to understand who was being paid in this process, who was the ultimate beneficiary of this largesse. And almost at the outset, we established that lucrative contracts were channeled to those who were politically connected, and chief among them is the ANC's Ekurhuleni Treasurer General Sello Sekoko, who in the period of 3 years scored 15 million rand in contracts. He operates 3 companies through which this money was channeled. Only one has a website, none have warehouses or storage facilities, but they simply keep getting business from government hospitals across the network. So as this investigation has moved forward, we've highlighted the role of one particular individual, and that's Hangwani Morgan Maumela. Our sources inside the Department of Health told us that he's referred to as the Don of Tembisa, that he holds sway with management and with their procurement office. And that's borne out by the fact that within 3 years, he scored nearly 400 million rands worth of business from primarily Tembisa Hospital and other hospitals in the network. What's important to remember when we talk about Hangwani Morgan Maumela is his presidential connection. He is nephew to President Cyril Ramaphosa from a previous marriage, and the links to the president run even deeper because he lives in a plush residential